But this is Prabhupada's letter after Jayananda passed away. And this is dated, it's from Juhu on the 5th of May. Oh, interesting. 1977. Dear Jayananda, please accept my blessings. I am feeling very intensely your separation. Again, this is Prabhupada writing to Jayananda. In 1967, you joined me in San Francisco. You were driving my car and chanting Hare Krishna. You were the first man to give me some contribution, $5,000, for the printing of my Bhagavad Gita. After that, you have rendered very valuable service to Krishna in different ways. I so hope at the time of your death you are remembering Krishna, and as such, you have been promoted to the eternal association of Krishna. If not, if you had any tinge of material desire, you have gone to the celestial kingdom to live with the demigods for many thousands of years and enjoy the most opulent life of material existence. From there you can promote yourself to the spiritual world. But even if one fails to promote himself to the spiritual world, at that time he comes down again on the surface of this globe and takes birth in a big family like a yogi's or a Brahmin's or an aristocratic family, where there's again the chance of reviving Krishna consciousness. But as you were hearing Krishna Kirtan, I'm sure that you were directly promoted to Krishna Loka. Janma karma chame divyam ebam yo vedi tatvata tyakva dehar punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. Krishna has done you a great favor, not to continue your diseased body, but has given you a suitable place for your service. Thank you very much. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He actually passed away from leukemia, but the general analysis of anyone who knew him was what really happened is he packed 80 years of devotional service into about 40 years. He actually passed away over here in, I think they've got a little sign by the apartment. And as I heard it from Ramaswar, you know, it wasn't the digital days, the digital, you know, we had a big chunky cassette player with an endless tape of Prabhupada chanting japa. And he was lying on the floor, lying down with that right next to his ear. And his last act was to lift his head up somehow or other and put it right on top of the tape player to hear, and then he left this world. So now there's one more statement. This is from Mukunda Maharaj, but he's narrating what Prabhupada said. So Prabhupada wrote, or said, Jayananda's death is glorious. It's very good that, as he had stated, what is the use of such a useless body? Better to give it up. He has left his body very wonderfully, and he has been transferred to Vaikuntha. Prabhupada added that when he heard the details of how he actually left. And he's been transferred to Vaikuntha. I've already sent a condolence letter for publication in Back to Godhead. Everyone should follow the example of Jayananda. I am very proud that I had such a nice disciple. If possible, Jayananda's picture should be hung on the Rath of Lord Jagannath, and in all of our temples a day must be set aside for holding a festival in his honor, just as we do for the disappearance day of other great Vaishnavas. And Prabhupada said that he was a certified first American Vaishnav saint. Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me that Jayananda, of course he built the first Rath cart, and we'll do some bio in a minute, But in New York City, he built that big, beautiful Rath. Just imagine Prabhupada coming to America with nothing. There's so many stories, I'm just trying to... Coming to America with nothing. 40 rupees, which you couldn't transfer, wandering hither and thither. Prabhupada said when he got off in Boston, when he got off the boat, he didn't know whether to turn left or whether to turn right. So nothing. And then here he is. What was the year of that Ratha Yatra? 76? 77? 76. And Prabhupada arrived in 65, September of 65. So that's 12 years. So from what, Prabhupada used to take the bus, because there was no, Google Maps to find bookstores, where to put his books. He would ride around New York on the bus. He would go to the New York Public Library to check out, were people checking out his books, and they were actually checking out his Bhagavatams. So just wandering alone. And here, 12 years later, he's sailing down Fifth Avenue, which Prabhupada said is the most important street in the most important city in the most important country in the world, certainly at that time. And here he is sailing down the road with thousands of followers, and just amazing, inconceivable, against all odds. So Jayananda built those big, beautiful carts. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me, afterwards, after the parade and the festival, that everything's over, Prabhupada's having darshan in his room, all the big GBCs and sannyasis and temple presidents are all gathered there. Prabhupada sat down, looked out at the audience, and said, "Where's Jayananda?" So where was Jayananda? Because Sankirtan parties from all east of the Mississippi had all come to the the New York Ratha Yatra. So he was underneath one of the Sankirtan vans, fixing the van. All you could see were his overalls and his legs. And of course, he had 3 or 4 bhaktas that he was preaching to. They couldn't see his body because he's underneath. They could see his legs and they could hear his voice. So Adi Keshava was sent by Prabhupada, bring Jayananda. Jayananda, Adi Keshava comes down and says, "Prabhupada's asking for you." Jayananda says, "No, he doesn't want, I'm all covered with grease and he's just trying to encourage me. No, just tell him thank you. Didn't come." Prabhupada sent Adi Keshava again. This is directly from Tamal's mouth. It was sitting in the room. Prabhupada sends Adi Keshava again. Again, he says, "No, he's just trying to encourage me, but I've got to fix this van, and he's got so many big people. I don't want to buy." No. Prabhupada said the third time, send Adi Keshava back. And Prabhupada said, "You tell him I will not speak until he comes." So Jayananda, covered with grease in his overalls, after working, for 72 hours without sleeping, he came into Prabhupada's room and sat in the back. Prabhupada continued with the darshan. He immediately fell asleep. I mean, the man had, talk about resting your bones. He had not sat or stopped, motion for 72 hours or more. Maybe a cat nap for 10, 15 minutes here or there. So there was a little brahmachari next to him, nudged him, "Hey, wake up. So, he came back to, but a few minutes later he fell asleep again. The little brahmachari nudged him again. You got a room, 40 people, he's sitting in the back, Prabhupada's engaged in conversations. Falls asleep the third time, the brahmachari about to nudge him. Prabhupada says, "Stop! Do not touch him. He's doing more service than all of you combined." And Prabhupada was completely happy just to sit there with Jayananda nodding off in the back, just to see his disciple. The first time I met Jayananda, well, let's read the bio. just a little brief something here. If I can get my computer to cooperate. Okay. Now, here we go. He joined in 1967, and he drove his taxi cab 15 hours plus to get overtime to pay the temple rent. At the same time, he was taking care of 15 to 20 brahmacharis. The devotee said that Bhagavatam class was often who he met in his taxi cab and what their condition was and what he said to them, and it was katha from the cab. Tamal told me this, Tamal Krishnamurti told me this, that he was in the room when Prabhupada gave Jayananda, Prabhupada puts on the thread and then chants, on the thread, and he gives you the mantra in the left ear. And Jayananda, although he knew Prabhupada well, was so shy and embarrassed, and shy and nervous, that the thread got all tangled up and he couldn't remember how to count. We've seen devotees do that blank on the 4 regular principles when they're getting their beads. So the thread got all tangled up. He couldn't remember to count. He forgot the words. Prabhupada showed him a number of times, and then finally Prabhupada said, "You are hopeless." Imagine if Prabhupada said that to you. And then Prabhupada said, "But you're so sincere. Whatever you chant, Krishna will accept." The first time I met Jayananda I was a bhakta, I'm still trying to be a bhakta, but here in LA. And we drove up, everyone would drive up early to try to help, a couple days early and help out with the Ratha Yatra. So that was 1970, summer of 1970. And Donavir, who was my bhakta leader, Donavir said, because everybody takes services, you're cutting fruit at the Berkeley Temple, or you're over here doing this. And Donavir, now Maharaj, who knew the story, said, "Get on Jayananda's work detail. Get on Jayananda's work detail." So I said, "Oh, okay." So, I volunteered, and we went down where they were building the carts. And why? Because Jayananda, on one of those Boy Scout camp stoves, you pump them, a little funky little thing, he cooked chili with paneer in it. I still remember. He made blueberry halava. He had some Matajis make cornbread. It was a feast. I couldn't believe it. On this, in a parking lot where they're putting up the carts, on a little candy stove with some help from some Vaishnavis, a huge feast. And he worked us hard. We were going for 15, 16 hours minimum. We got back late at night to the temple. Karanda was on that detail. It was fantastic. We got back late, and I'm just a kid. I'm just a little punk kid who's trying to keep his dhoti on. So we got back to the temple. It's late at night. The temple room. The San Francisco temple was like a boxcar. It was long and thin, had a basement, and there were people sleeping everywhere. There was like no room. And Karandar helped me. He was like my big brother. And we cleared out this broom closet. Thanks. And is it on? Okay. So Karandar and Karandar snored. The two of us, I probably did too. We just collapsed. And then we thought, wait, where's Jayananda sleeping? You know where he was sleeping? He was sleeping by the front door of the temple. So, and there's, street traffic and, this big city at night, there's so much. So we moved out. We said, Jayananda, you sleep? He could, that was the Hare Krishna Hilton. He could have the broom closet. And he said, no. He said, I'm happy here. So he said, you know, we were inquiring. He said, I don't actually like to sleep. He said, but I figure if I sleep here, I'm by the front door, if anybody tries to break in, I'll wake up. The man had calculated if he had to lay his body down, how could even lying down be service? He'd hear them breaking in. I thought, this is not an ordinary person. I met him again. He was in charge of one of the buses on the Radha Damodar party. Those of you who don't know, I mean, they were converted school buses or Greyhound buses and converted into temples. Prabhupada really liked it. And they went to colleges and campuses and cities, all, you know, they'd set up and chant on the campus with Vishnu Jan. Prabhupada said his voice could enchant the whole world. So he was in charge of one of the buses. And that was the Christmas marathon time. So they'd stopped the college program and they were stopped in Detroit. They were doing the parking lots and malls and stuff like that. And I was the Sankirtan leader for the Detroit temple. So we're in this little Sankirtan office and we're sending out I'm sending out the San Diego devotees, and I'm, talking with Jayananda because I knew the spots, and he's sending out his, And Bhakta Phil, who later on became Prahlad Priya, he was called Philly Phil because he was from Philadelphia. So he came in, he's going out on, it's Detroit, it's 12 degrees with a wind chill factor of who knows what. It's freezing cold. It's for Eskimos and moose, So we were going out. So he just had a little breaker, a little windbreaker, those plastic windbreakers. Jayananda said, you can't go out in that. Well, yeah. Jayananda said, take my jacket. He said, no, my mom sent me a brand new jacket. My mom sent me a jacket. So, it's better than, you just take this one, it's extra. So he bundled up Bhakta Phil, and Bhakta Phil went out on Sankirtan. After all the devotees got out, I'm going out, I'm getting into my car. Jayananda's getting into his car to do book distribution in the Kmart parking lot. And I noticed he's got this little windbreaker on. I said, Jayananda, what are you doing? I thought you had another replacement jacket. He said, no, not really. I just told him that because otherwise he wouldn't have taken my jacket. He was ready to, and that's just the way he thought. It was like nothing extra. That's just the way he thought, So I said, hang on a minute. We went inside and rummaged around and found him some nice coat and, off he went. He had now, kids, don't try this at home. We cannot, like Lord Shiva drinking poison, it's not for us to imitate. He was very frugal, parsimonious. He did not waste a thing. He worked this, all the rented stuff, we had different, scaffolding and this and that, and all the rental, equipment. He made sure that we got it back before the 24 hours was burnt up from when he rented it, so he needed some new work clothes. He was in Sears, and he stole a pair of pants. Now, don't imitate, but he stole a pair of pants, and he got caught. And they got a police detective, calls the police come, they're going to take him to jail, and they start talking to him. And they realize, he said, well, I work for our church, and I didn't want to spend any of the church's money, and, we're doing this, that, and the other thing. He was so charming, so guileless, so innocent, so sincere, that the store detective paid for the pants, and the cops didn't take him to jail. Now, we've got some pictures. Is this the first one? Okay, here's Prabhupada, Jayananda walking. I didn't bring my laser printer. But just go through these. What's the next one? Sham? Okay, here's on Sankirtan. You can rotate through these a couple times while I'm speaking. But I want to show, go to the next one. I want to show a particular picture. Go again. Next. That's the picture. See Jayananda talking to the cop? I mean, how can you argue with such a person? So like I say, the store detective bought the pants, and the police, I think they even drove him back to the temple, you know? So now later on, he had some savings or some inheritance. You heard he gave the first 5,000 he gave for printing Gita. Later on, he gave another. Well, the devotees pressured him to try to save himself. And his body was so far gone, it was, you know, stage 4, whatever it is. But he went down to Tijuana, and he was staying at a clinic, an alternative clinic in Tijuana. And I was the temple president in San Diego by that time. So we would take him down prasadam. And we took him a big plate of sliced watermelon and samosas. And he just ate a few of the, he ate about half the watermelon, but didn't touch the samosas. And then I realized that he was blind, half blind on one side, and could see only the, I turned the plate, he said, "Oh, samosas," and dove into him, you know. That man could pack away prasadam. But, you know, so, you know, we thought he was going to stay for some time, and, you know, it's hassle getting across the border. So I'd go every couple days, or we'd send some devotees down with a couple days. So I saw him that first time with the watermelon and the samosas. And then we went back, you know, a couple days later. And I went to his room, and he wasn't in the room. I thought, oh my gosh, you know, he's passed away. We, you know, oh, we were just. And then I saw a little sign in the window of his room. He had a window you could look into. And it said Bhagavad Gita class, spiritual meditation, every morning, 11 a.m., solarium. And so there's an area with like an outdoor patio area with the sun. This whole, you know, you catch the sun, and there he was, white as a sheet. I mean, he was not. I don't know how he even got out there, sitting there in his wheelchair, surrounded by people in wheelchairs. And oh yeah, they were, you know, crutches and wheelchairs and on gurneys. He's out there in his wheelchair, and he was railing forth on Bhagavad Gita. And, you know, they were all there. They had the kirtan, he had kartals. You know, talk about you can't keep a good man down. It was just an unbelievable thing. So, let me see. I want to turn the chair over to Trivikram Maharaj, but let me just see if there's. Huh? I don't think so, but it could be. You know better than me. So, here's one last thing, and then we'll turn it over to Trivikram Maharaj. Oh, do you have any? I don't want to put you on the spot. Did you ever? Otherwise, we can start reading from Kalakanta, but I don't. You tell me what you want to do. You're my older brother. So I work well with good instruction, Maharaj. You tell me what to do.
I think I'll go back and sit down.
All right, then I'll just finish up. We'll finish up in a couple minutes. Huh? Oh, you got the dot which you could stop time with? That's look at that. Okay, we'll just read for a few minutes from well, here's something far out. There's a devotee named Rohini Suti. He's not the Swiss Rohini Suti. He was in Bhakti Ron from Jersey. And he was a new Bhakta and moved into the Brooklyn Temple. And Jayananda was there. And he gave Jayananda, I think it was $2,000, and said, "You keep this for me, okay? Because there's no safe in the ashram, you keep it for me." So he gave it to Jayananda. Then, I don't know the time, week, 2 weeks, something like that later, he decided he was going to bloop, and he wanted to get his money back. So he went to Jayananda and came into Jayananda's room, was going to ask for his money back, and before he had a chance to say a word, Jayananda said, "Come with me. I want to show you something, Bhaktiran. I want to show you something." And they took him down to the temple room. There was Radha Damodar, and he'd made garlands out of the money. And, I guess they were $100 bills. I don't know how he did it, but, I've seen it done before. Made a garland for Krishna, for Damodar, and a garland for Radharani. And said, "Don't they look beautiful?" And there was Bhaktiran, he was a devotee, and how can you ask for your money back? It's there, it's on the deities, it's been offered to Radha Damodar. So he was a little begrudging about it, but he thought, I can't ask for it back. And he made it. He made it he said, if I'd gotten that money back, he said, I never would have stayed in Krishna consciousness. He said, Jayananda literally saved me. And how he knew to do that, who knows? But he was nobody's fool. He was a very soft-hearted, but nobody's fool. So I will read, let me just find this from, I think I pulled it up. Here we go. So this is by Kalakanta Prabhu. And that we've read. Okay, Jayananda's beginnings in Krishna consciousness. Jayananda was the all-American boy. Handsome, strong, intelligent, born in a more than middle-class family. Jayananda, Jim Core, took a degree in mechanical engineering from Ohio State University. With a background like that, it's surprising that Jayananda ended up as a cab driver in San Francisco. Karanda once asked him, "Why didn't you get a better paying job?" "I just didn't fit in with that upper-class crowd," he said. Always introspective in nature, Jayananda felt empty and unsatisfied with himself during his college years. He would often say that he was never happy before joining Krishna consciousness. His depression was almost suicidal when in 1967 he read a small article in a San Francisco paper about an Indian Swami who'd come to the Bay Area to propagate the chanting of the names of God. Jayananda recalled feeling, quote, a ray of hope, end quote, when he read the article. Thinking the Swami may have something to offer, Jayananda made up his mind to attend the Swami's lectures. Hold on a sec here. Srila Prabhupada's early lectures in the Bay Area were mostly attended by hippies, and Jayananda was one of the only straight people there. Jayananda later recalled, quote, "I wasn't much of a religionist, but I was attracted to Prabhupada," end quote. He was especially fond of attending the early morning lectures because at that hour most of the hippies would be in bed sound asleep. On some occasions, Jayananda would be the only guest listening to Prabhupada speak on Bhagavatam in the morning class. Srila Prabhupada was always fond of Jayananda, and sometimes he would invite his budding disciple to take prasadam with him in his room. Quoting from Jayananda, "Srila Prabhupada would cook prasadam and serve me," Jayananda recalled. "He didn't say anything. He just kept feeding me, and I kept eating." Jayananda soon donated his life savings of 5,000 for Srila Prabhupada to help His Divine Grace print the Bhagavad Gita. I should also mention that after this, because the devotees pressured him, he tried to do something in Tijuana. It didn't work. He took his remaining savings of $10,000 and gave that to Srila Prabhupada, and that's how the teachings of Lord Chaitanya was printed. Jayananda. Remember, the TLC. As more and more devotees joined ISKCON in the Bay Area, Jayananda continued to work as a cab driver and supported the temple by contributing all of his earnings. Chandanacharya Prabhu remembers this special feature about Jayananda. He was completely enamored by Krishna consciousness, Chandan said. Even when he'd go out on the incense runs, all by himself, he would rise early every morning before 4, have a little Mangalarti, chant all of his rounds, read and cook prasadam. He never deviated. He absolutely loved it. He was completely happy as long as he was practicing Krishna consciousness. Take prasadam, for example. Jayananda worshipped prasadam. When a little prasadam spilled on the floor, he would always bend over on all fours and lick it up. He loved to cook, offer, distribute, and take prasadam in a big way. He would always take prasadam with him and distribute it, whether he was making a bhoga run, buying prasad for the temple, or taking a chanting party downtown. He would even say prasadam in a special way that made you immediately want to take some. This incense run, we had an incense business. It was sold, spiritual sky incense. We sold it to, Prabhupada sold it, to build the Bombay temple, to make the down payment on that lawn, that land. The saying was, Krishna makes the best. On each pack of incense, there's a picture of Vishnu. And the motto was, Krishna makes the best sense. And it was like aroma or scent, but it all, like the best intelligent, the best choice, the best sense. That was the motto. And so householders, many times the temple president, to support the temple, would go out and sell packs of incense in different head shops and, whatever it was. So, and people had a run, you had a circuit. You had your regular customers and you'd go out and... So, what was I going to say? Oh, so many, and he would never pay for a hotel or a place to stay or, sleep in the van or whatever. He would sleep in the van, he'd sleep in a car, or he made friends along the way. And Kalakanta counted it up. And in the 5 or 6 years that he was doing that, he made over 25 full-time devotees. People he met in the store, people he met, whatever. He was infectious with Krishna consciousness. We'll read just a few more. Jayananda knew how to attract people to Krishna consciousness with the prasadam weapon. When a new devotee came, for example, Jayananda would see to it that he was sumptuously fed with prasadam. When Jambavan Das was just becoming a devotee, Jayananda would bring him a plate of prasadam so big he thought he would never eat it all. When he finally did finish the plate, Jayananda immediately put an identical plate, a second plate, down before him. I can't eat that, said Jambavan. Srila Prabhupada said that we should eat till we waddle like a duck, Jayananda said. Jambavan would finish the second plate. He woke us up when we were sleeping in San Francisco. He said, hey, Prabhu, I got a benediction for you. It's 1 o'clock. He had slept by the door for a few hours. He was back at service. We were dead to the world. Gives a shake. Hey, Prabhu, I got a benediction for you. What? He said, open your mouth. And he'd drop some peanut butter halava right in your mouth. You think, wow. You're a young man. Prabhupada said young man means hungry, It's just... I guess I'll just read one more and then we'll... Well, here it says, of course, Jayananda himself could be found honoring large quantities of prasadam any time, day or night. He was the kind of devotee who would come up to you at 10 o'clock with some peanut butter halva and say, hey, Prabhu, come here, check this out. Prabhupada said that, especially when you're young, if you work like a horse, you can eat like a horse. But if you work like a bird, then you have to eat like a bird. If you work like a bird and eat like a horse, you'll get sick. But you can burn it off if you're energetic. Another example of his attachment to Krishna consciousness is Jayananda's love for kirtan. Jayananda would always be eager to take the whole temple out on Harinam chanting parties. He had a special attraction for chanting in the streets. You saw that picture. They were there with Tamal Krishna Maharaj playing drum. Whether the kirtan was held in the temple or in the street, Jayananda would always be seen dancing and chanting enthusiastically. When he was making Maharaj Das into a devotee, Jayananda would visit his house and have big kirtans. Even if there were only the two of them, they would jump and chant Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Also, Karanda recalls one day, after working very hard for 10 hours straight, Jayananda announced, "Hey, it's 10 to 7. Let's go to Arti." Everyone else on the work party was so tired that Arti was the last thing on their mind. But Jayananda quickly jumped into the shower and then bounced down the temple to the temple room for Arti. We can end there, but just, it gives you a sample. You know, Prabhupada said, if you're not happy in Krishna consciousness, you're doing something wrong. And someone who was completely surrendered, like Jayananda, was feeling the greatest happiness, and his happiness was to give Krishna to others. So it works. I'll end with one last example from Prabhupada. What happens if you eat off a diseased person's plate? Don't overthink it. What generally happens? You get the disease, right? Okay. And every disease has symptoms. Fever, headache, something like that, isn't it? Yeah. So what are we doing? This is Prabhupada's example. What are we doing when we're taking prasadam? What is the special qualification of prasadam? It was offered to Krishna. We're eating off Krishna's plate, right? Okay. So if you eat off Krishna's plate, Prabhupada said, you get Krishna's disease. Okay. And every disease has symptoms. I'm taking prasadam off Krishna's plate, after it's been transferred, of course. And I get Krishna's disease. Every disease has symptoms. What's the next question? What are the symptoms of Krishna's disease? Prabhupada leaned back and he said, Sat Chit Ananda. Those are the symptoms. And then Prabhupada said, and there's no cure. So that disease we want to get. So that's just, it works. Krishna consciousness works. I was saying just the other day, and anyway, people say, oh, I said Hare Krishna, nothing happened to me. Well, think about it. You want to get a PhD. You spend 6 years in elementary school. You spend, 2 years and 3 years in middle school, whatever it is, another 2 years in high school. So now we're up to 10, right? 4 years in college, undergrad, now you're up to 14. 2 years to get a master's, now you're up to 16. To get a PhD, minimum is 2 years. So you're up to 18 years. You have to invest. And all you get with a PhD, piled higher and deeper, permanent head damage, prominent humility disorder, but that's another thing. We're not anti-education, but even you, when you finally get it, that's just the ticket to play on the field. That just lets you speak in academic circles. That's the beginning. You got to spend 18 years sweating it. And Krishna consciousness, it doesn't take some effort, doesn't take some time. You don't have to, But the fact of the matter is, if you follow the process, utsaha nishchaya daryat, enthusiastic, determined, and patient, will become Krishna conscious. And you can see the example of Jayananda. Okay, we can end it. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Okay. Jai Krishna Prasadam. Thank you.